My Soul.
Love it.
Hi, welcome to My Soul HQ. We're here for another in our artist interview series, and we have special guest all the way from Australia, Brisbane, Jordan Rakei.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So Jordan, we're delighted to have you here in the UK. You understand you were born in New Zealand but have grown up in Australia, Brisbane.
Yep.
But one of the things I wanted to ask you straight off the bat is your surname, Rakei. Where does that come from?
So originally my dad, who's from the Cook Islands, grew up in New Zealand, and it's a name that sort of stems from the Cook Islands, and the Cook Island culture is also similar to the Māori culture, which is the indigenous people of New Zealand. So it's pronounced, I think the right pronunciation is Rakei, but I usually say Rakei or Rakei. So it, obviously, as not many people know that sort of culture, a lot of people around the world say it differently. So it's interesting hearing everyone's different pronunciations of the word. Yeah.
And how did that name come about in terms of your family then?
I think it's just, I guess it's just my dad's last name, stemming from that culture back from his home back in the Cook Islands.
Right. So it's on your dad's side, is
It's
it?
just my dad's side, and a lot of people think it's actually an artist name because it looks sort of different, but I guess that's the bonus of having a foreign sort of name. Yeah.
So you're here in the UK, but you've come from Australia. Tell me a bit about growing up in Australia. Did you come from a musical background? What was it like?
I came from a musical family that none of them played instruments, but we loved music, and we always grew up listening to music around the house. We'd be driving places, and music would always be playing in the car, and we'd always be singing around. I have two brothers as well, so the parents were in the front seats, and my three brothers were in the back, and we'd be singing and trying to harmonise or whatever. But I guess I've come from a musical family in that sense, and my dad loved exploring playing instruments with his friends, and that's sort of where I picked it up from when I was 13. The true love of music, after seeing him and going to high school and seeing a lot of my friends play music. So I've never really grown up in a musical family, but I feel their influence has been huge on me.
And what kind of things were you listening to growing up?
Growing up, well, it was all mum's music, which was pretty much Motown and disco from the 70s and 80s. And then when I got older, I grew more to dad's sort of stuff, which was sort of experimental reggae and Pink Floyd and heaps of experimental acts. So that's why you sort of hear in my music how I'm blending soul, and I'm trying to sort of push boundaries with the experimental side, which I guess directly comes from both my parents.
Yeah, I was wondering where that comes from. So obviously you've got the traditional soulful upbringing on the Motown side and stuff, and then the more experimental stuff. Because your music is what we call here in the UK, I guess, future soul.
Yeah.
It's alternative. It's not different. It's not traditional soul. It's very soulful, but it's not traditional soul in that sense.
Yeah, and I guess it's not sort of traditional electronic music either. It's sort of like a blend of both. But yeah, that's why I'm always interested in exploring sort of new sounds, which is what my dad sort of was not taught me, but I sort of learned from him as I was growing up. He's listening to all this sort of weird music, acid jazz or drum and bass, when drum and bass wasn't really big, or I don't know, all these boundary pushing sort of genres. And as I grew up, I sort of took what I liked and then started making music myself and then exploring like all those different influences.
And in your first EP, Franklin's Room, there's a lot of reggae influence on that, isn't there?
Yeah.
So is that where that came from, your dad?
Yeah, and at the time I was, listening to a lot of New Zealand reggae, which was Fat Freddy's Drop and Catch a Fire. And I sort of found that the more I listened to a genre, the more I wrote like this stuff I listened to. So, and that's what I'm finding like now. So I'm listening to a lot of different music, and then that's sort of what I tend to write like. My second EP was obviously more soulful, and at that time I was currently listening to a lot of soul music from early 90s and late 90s. So yeah, I guess it's just sort of subconsciously influencing myself through listening to music. Yeah.
Is in Australia, in the culture, is there much soul music? I mean, traditionally there's been a number of artists that have come through over the years, like Marcia Hines, Renee, and more recently people like Chelsea Wilson, Electric Empire, Carmen Hendricks, obviously yourself. So there is a number of soul artists coming from Australia, but is there a scene out there? Is it how popular is it?
It's not a thriving scene, but it's definitely a growing scene with the Grammy nomination of an Australian band, Hiatus Coyote,
Yeah,
which sort of gave everyone the opportunity to explore soul in Australia, knowing that people did like it. So they blew up, and then it sort of gave us the freedom to go, oh, okay, well, they did it, we can do it. And then now there's this growing scene. But I've just come here, for the past 3 weeks, and it's obviously really prominent in London. So I've been going around seeing lots of live music, and it's everywhere. Whereas in Australia, there might be an event once every few months or once every few weeks. So it's definitely refreshing to be immersed in this soulful culture here. But Brisbane and Australia in general is definitely growing, and it's growing quite rapidly. So hopefully, we are the force to be reckoned with in the future, Australian soul.
And do you know a lot of the other artists like Hiatus Coyote or any of the other artists? Have you ever worked with any of them?
I've never worked with them. I'd love to. I'd love to if anyone knows about that. I know.
If you're watching.
I know a few, and I've worked with a few. But since it's such a small community, that's how we sort of know everyone. I just know a lot of them virtually. So you might email them saying, "Hey, I love your stuff," and then they like it back and stuff like that. Or you play at the same festivals, because soul festivals are quite small. You're all at the same sort of ones. But no, that's something I never have really done much. I work with people in person. I usually just work on the interweb. So it'll be cool in Australia to get back and work with Hiatus Coyote or Oscar Keysong or Astro Travelers. All these guys from Brisbane that are quite good. So yeah, I definitely want to work with more.
What attracted you to come to London? I mean, obviously you're discovering the scene now. How much do you know about London, and what made you come here in the first place?
It was pretty much, all the hype that everyone tells you about, London is this or New York is this. And I've seen Hiatus thrive over here, Hiatus Coyote thrive over here, and other big soul acts, and Fat Freddy's drop. There's just a bigger soul scene. So I had to come and expand my horizons, I guess, because I felt like I had plateaued in Brisbane. There's not much more you can go in soul music. So I've come here, and now I'm sort of the classic cliche, the small fish in a big pond, is that the one? But there's so many soul artists to compete with now, which sort of pressures me to write more, work on my music more, so I can compete with these people. So it's mainly to be influenced by the culture, but yeah, it's really exciting. Hopefully the next few months are...
Yeah, because what you've done is interesting, because some people just come out for a couple of weeks or whatever.
Yeah.
You're here for 6 months, and you're actually here to record music, make music.
Yeah, and play shows, because it's been on high demand the past few months. People on Facebook or Twitter messaging me, hey, when are you coming to the UK or Europe? So I thought, why not record some stuff here and then kill two birds with one stone, and also play some shows, because you can't waste a plane ticket to Europe and not play any shows. So yeah, I'm here to play shows. It's not really a holiday, it's more so an investment into my career, holiday, working life sort of thing. Yeah, so it's exciting. I'm still sort of up in not up in arms, I'm still sort of deciding what I'm going to do for the next 6 months, but I have a plan to record and play some shows, so it's pretty exciting, yeah.
So you've put 2 EPs out. The first EP got you on the map, and the second EP has really started to accelerate things. There's quite a big buzz on a lot of the tracks on there. One I was going to ask about was a collaboration with Gwyn Bun. How did that come about?
Yeah, so I heard her only 2 months before I asked her to sing for me, and I was looking for a feature on my EP, someone really soulful, but that had a really interesting take on songs. I don't know if you've heard her original music. She blends, strange jazz and electronic stuff and future soul. And I wanted her influence on my track, so I messaged her and sent her that song and A Tribe Called Government, which is another track, and got her to choose one which she wanted to feature on. And she chose that one, and she added another level towards the middle of the song. There's this big sort of jazz chord change thing that she does with her harmonies, which she wrote and she did. So she had that extra level which took the song to another level, which was great. So yeah, really happy to work with her. She was really easy to work with, so that was awesome.
And where did you record that?
Oh, so I just sent her the music.
And she recorded it in the
States? And she recorded it, I think she lives in Georgia in America, so she just recorded it, sent it back, and I was saying, hey, can you record some backing vocals? We just worked online, and it was really easy, so...
And you just found her online, is that how you...
I found her online because I was a fan of her work.
Right.
And then she heard me and she told me, I'm a fan of your work. So it was like a cool little collaboration thing there, yeah.
And you mentioned one of my favourite tracks on the album, A Tribe Called Government. Tell me about that track.
Yeah, so that track was sort of the first track for me that I really cared about lyrically, because when I first started making music, I was sort of in the mindset of a beat maker that just managed to sing over my stuff. And my first EP, even though it was recorded on instruments, I was coming from the point of view that I just want to sing and just make it sound good, you know, sing nice melodies and make nice music. But a Tribe Called Government, you know, the last few years I've been really like passionate about sort of stepping out for yourself and not fighting the system, but doing something that you want to do and not being held down by other powers. So it's sort of speaking out against that. Yeah.
So you've also put out a track with FKJ as well, which is a fantastic track. So tell me how that one came about. Same
sort of thing, I guess. But he contacted me on that point. But he was a fan of my music. You know, he shared it on SoundCloud, which I have sort of big following on SoundCloud, and he has a large one too. And we were both fans of each other's music. And I just managed to comment on one of his tracks one day, and he clicked on my profile, and he heard me sing, and then he emailed me saying, "Hey, I'm a fan of your work. Do you want to sing on a track?" And he sent me 2 beats, and I just chose that one and recorded it in a day, and I sent it back, and that's all that happened. And then he, you know, a few months later, he's mixed it and mastered it, and now it's doing really well. It got shared on a big YouTube channel, which got me a lot of new followers for Facebook and SoundCloud.
It's definitely one of your most popular tracks.
Yeah, I think it is by far. So it's sort of great doing those collaborations where you can sort of blend styles. Yeah.
And whilst you're here, are you doing more collaborations and stuff? You're going to be doing more?
At the moment here, I'm currently working with a lot of people. You know, no official collaborations yet. I'm working with a London artist called Tom Mish, who, you know, he's on the rise as well. And we're interesting how we're both sort of singer-songwriters, but we have an influence of sort of 90s hip-hop. So it's cool blending our styles together. I'm working with, I work with about 10 people so far, and it's just been all different. It's been interesting learning how to work with different people, or how to sort of play stuff that they enjoy and trying to blend styles together. So it's really refreshing working with people in person. You can talk, you know, directly, and there's more of an organic relationship. So yeah, I really enjoy it. Hopefully I can work with more people.
And how does the creative process work for you? Because obviously you talked about growing up, your influences of sort of traditional soul and more alternative stuff. How do you do that moving forward and making new music? How do you blend the 2 different styles, and how do you create music and write as well?
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm constantly listening to new music, and then I get to this whole fighting point of myself where I come halfway through an unfinished track and I'm like, well, I wonder, you know, you get to the point, I wonder if many other artists do it, where you get to the point where you say, I wonder if my old fans that love my reggae stuff would like this, or I wonder if my hip hop fans would like this, because I'm starting to, you know, venture even more experimental, more soul or more like Afro-Cuban stuff. I'm blending all these genres, and you know, I don't like the idea of an artist finding a sound and then staying at that their whole life. I like to grow my sound, and hopefully people come with me and grow on the journey with me. But like, you know, I really look forward to looking back after 8 releases and seeing how far I've come. So I guess there is no creative filter. I just do what I make, you know, because subconsciously I've listened to all this music. I just play what I enjoy, and then if I like it, that's good to me. So if I'm making a song, it's good for me, and then I just you know, hopefully everyone likes it as I continue to grow.
And is it an organic process in terms of building the music and songs and stuff, or do you hear it all in your head and you know exactly how it sounds? How does it work?
It's you know, it's interesting. Sometimes I've started where I literally, you know, might be cooking or cutting food, and I start singing a melody, and I quickly get my phone and just record 10 seconds of it, and then, you know, when I finished, I'll try and make a beat around it. Or sometimes, you know, I'm playing the keyboard and then I record it, then I, you know, program drums and then play a bass line. Because usually I play all of my stuff on my tracks, the bass and guitar and drums and stuff. And then I write on top. So I have sort of 2 different processes. One might be a spontaneous little ad-lib while I'm cutting onions. And then one might be, you know, a structured environment when I'm actually out, I put myself out to write a song, and then I come out with, you know, a track differently. So that's the usual way I do it. You know, I record stuff and then I sing on top of a beat. But yeah, I guess it changes all the time. Yeah.
And now you're here, you're in London.
Yeah.
Has it inspired you? How are you finding it? How are you finding being here?
Yeah, I love it. Like I said, the pressure of putting myself up against all these other soul artists in London and trying to compete with that, but also the history of the city I really love as well. Just walking around the CBD and seeing old buildings. It's sort of inspiring to know that there's a lot of history here. So yeah, like all the jazz venues. There's some venues here that are older than our country, which is just insane, you know what I mean? And the house I'm staying at right now is a few hundred years old. Like stuff like that. And it's really interesting. It's just a totally different perspective on life, which will hopefully influence my music some way, you know, but yeah, it's really cool at the moment. It's only been 3, and it's really cool as well. It's quite cold.
Yeah, it's very cold, yeah.
Yeah.
So 3 weeks in, has it lived up to your expectations, or?
Yeah, but I guess I could still be in the honeymoon phase, because you know I don't really feel the cold. Like I love walking outside and it's really fresh. That's what I get from it. You know?
Give it time. Give it time.
That's what people say. But no, it's living up to the hype so far. Yeah.
And it was quite a brave move to sort of say, well, I'm going to pack up and move here for 6 months. And I think you saved up for quite a while to do that, didn't you? So
yeah.
So what's driven you to take such a big move?
It's just the risk, essentially, because I found myself, everything was coming too easily. Like, you know, I was making music and I was paying rent in Brisbane, and it was just nothing was challenging me. Mm-hmm. So throwing myself sort of in the deep end, where I have to go out and meet new friends, or I have to go out and talk to new venues, or meet totally new booking all this new stuff I have to pass. It was sort of like I want to be challenged in life as well, because it was not that it was too easy, the life I was living, but nothing was challenging me to a point where I could write, you know, a passionate song about struggle or something. So hopefully I encounter some struggle here. Well, not that I want it, but you know, I think it's going to be good to learn some more life lessons here.
And have you travelled before? Have you been outside Australia before?
Not really, you know, not really. I might go for a weekend or a few weeks to New Zealand, which is where I was born, or actually I've been to Cook Islands, which is where my dad was born. But you know, I've only been on little holidays. I haven't really fully explored another country, so it's definitely a different lifestyle. Yeah, something that will influence me for sure.
Can you see making this your permanent home, or what do you think?
You know, I'd love to anywhere in Europe. I mean, the good thing about Europe for me, because Australia is so isolated, essentially if you live in Europe, you have the ticket to all of Europe. So if you live in London, with a passport in London, you know, you're essentially living in Europe, which is, you know, more than 10 countries. I think. You know, all these countries and all these different cultures, and you're in this sort of melting pot of genres, which will influence me even more. So I want to be here. That would be, you know, a goal of mine. It's just sort of the cost of living. So I'll work it out hopefully.
So you see your long term living outside of Australia and maybe living somewhere in Europe?
I think so. I think expanding, because as long as Australia keeps growing, hopefully I can bring more traction to the Australian soul scene. But if Australia keeps growing, I could see myself living there, because it's a lovely place to live, and you know, it's great weather and people are lovely. But you know, there's a totally different lifestyle out here, and the culture is way different. And you know, like I said, all these this melting pot of Europe, it could be influencing, or possibly America as well, because that's a similar sort of thing. Yeah, I think it's just the American and Europe soul scene is really where it's at the moment. So. Yeah, possibly.
And what are your dreams and your visions for the future? What do you want to happen?
Oh wow, so much. I want so much to happen. You know, I'd love to do everything musically. Like explore a lot of jobs musically. Like I'd love to produce people. I'd love to consult for people in production. I'd love to write music for film. That's a big goal of mine, because combining sort of two arts, not necessarily. Writing music for a movie, collaborating with an animation or a short film, and coming up with a product of both arts.
Right. Okay. So actually, the whole so rather than scoring an existing movie, creating the whole thing.
Working on a short movie is a big dream of mine. Yeah. With no dialogue, just all music that can really depict the mood, or the mood, or the film that can really depict the music. I'd love to do that, and I'd love to. You know, keep recording and keep touring the world, because it's something I really enjoy now. You know, a lot of young artists look forward. They want to be famous, or they want to be playing to millions of people. But honestly, I feel like I'm doing it now. Like I'm making music I love, and I'm around the other side of the world, and I'm collaborating, and I'm singing, and I'm playing gigs. It's not, you know, it's nothing fancy. I'm not selling out shows, but it's something I really enjoy. So if I can manage to live like this for the rest of my life, yeah, I'll definitely be happy. Yeah, it's great. It's great.
Okay, and so have you got new music you're working on now that will be coming out later this year, or?
Yeah, so I've currently in Australia. I did a lot of pre-production in planning, so when I came to London, I could be ready and just take it to a studio and get some guy to get some recording on the drums or perhaps bass. So I've really prepared. I have about 13 tracks that I want to take to a studio, and then I'll choose. You know, I might do an album in the middle of the year, or maybe a dual EP, or maybe just one EP. I'll choose the best tracks. I still haven't really figured out what I'm going to do, but I've definitely written a lot of songs, and I'm going to be recording.
Do you prefer the EP format? Because obviously your 2 releases so far have been EPs rather than full albums. So.
I don't know. I think there's a big thing about if you don't release an album, you're not official yet. But you know, 5 good songs is 5 good songs really. So an EP, if it's a good EP, it's fine. But I sort of want to release an album because I have a lot of songs now, and I don't want to cut out 7 to choose 5. I want to choose 10 out of 13 sort of thing. So that's the reason I want to do an album or a double EP, as in a part 1, part 2. But yeah, I don't think one's better than the other, but I think a lot of people have the idea that you're only this artist if you've done an album, or yeah. But I think it's fine, really.
Well, I'm sure this is only the beginning, and things will start to escalate for you and you'll flourish. So I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.